What happens when a strutting narcissist fails, loses? We're seeing it unfold right before our very eyes. This one's a two-part video, two-segment video. Jay Caruso at Red State is the first one up on this occasion. With the headline, Trump and his supporters blame everybody else except Trump for all his self-inflicted troubles. For a campaign with supporters in tow that entered the general election season with all kinds of arrogance, completely unfounded and delusional arrogance, I might add, about Donald Trump's chances, things have changed dramatically as reality has forced its way in. We told you. We told you so. We told you this was going to happen. As I get down to the final 2 weeks, and the election is 2 weeks from today, as I make this video, Trump's campaign is in free fall. Well, it was never high enough to be in free fall technically, but we'll go with that. He is currently polling at an average of 40% in the Real Clear Politics average, which is pretty, it's almost impossible for any Republican to poll lower than that, even in the age of 50-50 nation. And Hillary Clinton is at 86% in the 538 election forecast, which is probably being generous to Trump. Now, when campaigns are losing, they look for somebody to blame. Recriminations, you know how it goes. You know how they say success has 1,000 fathers, but failure is an orphan? That kind of thing. It's a natural instinct, but Trump and his supporters take it to a whole new level. Like Barack Obama's supporters, nothing is ever Donald Trump's fault. No matter how little the issue is, it is the fault of some outside source, some huge shadowy conspiracy. Ooh! Kind of appropriate the next Monday's Halloween, isn't it? Now, for example, the media, which is retarded because the media did what the media always does. They tout the weakest possible Republican presidential candidate, force him or her on the Republican Party as its presidential nominee, and then turn around and tear him limb from limb, or her limb from limb. That's what the media does every 4 years. This is absolutely no different. And the fact that Trumplicans thought it would be different just speaks to the delusions that to which you have to succumb when you join a personality cult, an idolatrous, paganistic, left-wing nut personality cult. So the media is the favorite target for Trump. His staff, his surrogates, his supporters. It's a great crutch, but it's still a crutch. In fairness, the media is, or as a whole, is going to favor Democrats over Republicans, no matter who the Republicans are. I mean, that's not a question of fairness, that's a question of reality. How can Trump supporters be outraged at the media? What did they, well, yeah, I guess I was going to say, what do they expect? The media to support Trump? And then I realized, yeah, they probably do have that expectation. I mean, we are talking about delusions here. We're already into the land of make-believe to an inconceivable degree. So yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what they were thinking. Hillary's the first woman president is a narrative the media picked up soon after she lost the nomination to Barack Obama in 2008. The problem is Donald Trump routinely hands the media a flaming adamantium sword and says, "Chop me to bits, please." The penchant he has for never allowing a personal slight go unanswered is proven to me be a media disaster. Time after time after time after time. How can a lot of you conservatives, people like Doug Gibbs, how can you continue to support Trump? How can you continue to defend him? Wouldn't the overwhelming urge to take a shower win out at some point? At least some sheepishness? Remember that missing persons report that I suggested be put out on Ann Coulter yesterday? That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. I mean, any Republican candidate would face a hostile press. The difference is Trump invites the scrutiny and then he and his supporters whine about it. Oh, and then, of course, never Trump. People like me. Now, first, let's get something straight about the Never Trump movement. Contrary to what some say, the movement was never about stopping Trump. Because if the Never Trump movement was about stopping Trump, and Trump is doing a fine enough job of stopping himself as it is, but let's just say for the sake of argument that he had ever had a chance to win. The logic of stopping Trump means voting for Hillary. Now, I saw a survey yesterday that said that as many as 1 out of every 6 self-identified conservatives are supporting Hillary in order to stop Trump, which is just as retarded as supporting Trump to stop Hillary. They're both left-wing nut, New York liberal Democrats. Voting to stop one with the other who's just like that one is pointless. What is so difficult about not voting for either one? I don't know. That's the tribalism in which we are in which we're drowning, as I just said in the adjoining, immediately preceding video. Now, Never Trump was not about stopping Trump. Sure, some sub-movements carried the banner looking for ways to challenge Trump, but for the most part, it's very simple. It means we're not going to vote for Trump or Hillary. Period. When Trump was busy wrapping up the nomination, he and his surrogate spent most time telling Never Trump people they weren't needed to beat Hillary. Oh, you just gotta love the karma, don't you? They were told every day of their supposed, or we were, Never Trump, of our supposed irrelevance. And now, we're all told it will be our fault when Trump loses. Make up your bleeping minds. The people who were screaming, "Burn it all down!" are now wondering individuals who are Never Trump are not back. They're now wondering why individuals who are Never Trump are not backing the GOP nominee. You wanted to burn down and that's really the truth. They wanted to burn down the party. They didn't care about stopping Hillary. It's just now they may have deluded themselves that would be an icing on the cake, that they could do both, which makes no sense. I mean, you burn down your own party and you're going to win the election? How does that work? Even if you had a viable candidate. And now, because they have, it's like, what would be an analogy? It would be like lighting your house on fire in the hopes that would give it a makeover. You were looking for a charcoal hue or something along those lines. And your neighbor, who is Never Trump in this analogy, begged you, pleaded with you, don't do this, you're going to burn the house down. Don't do that, that's stupid. Well, no, but it's going to give us the makeover we've been looking for, and it's free. All we need to do is Get some matches and some gasoline. Are you out of your mind? Charcoal Hugh? You are bleeping bat. You are bleeping insane. No, it'll work. And so you try to talk him out of it, and then you just can't. They're absolutely convinced that lighting their house on fire is going to give it the makeover they've been looking for. And so you just shake your head and go back in your house, and then, half an hour later, there's a frantic pounding on your door, and it's your neighbor saying, "My house is burning down! Come and grab a hose!" You people have hosed yourselves. And we told you not to. We begged you. You did it anyway. And now you're pissed at us for not coming over with a hose. I mean, sure, we can come over with a hose, but it's not going to put out the flames, which would be analogous to stopping Trump's free fall. And it's certainly not going to undo the damage. Your house is already toast, literally and figuratively. What do you think is going to come out of the hose? Rainbows and unicorns? I mean, you think it's a temporal hose with temporal water? You pour water on the ashes, the smoldering remains, and it's going to magically rebuild the house? I mean, this is a group, Trumplicans, that couldn't, never Trump, that couldn't stop Trump from winning the GOP primary, but have managed to obtain power enough to keep him from winning the general election. In this way of, I hesitate to use the word thinking because there's no thought going into this at all. It's all emotion. It's all puerile emotion. Oh, and of course, Republicans. I mean, Trump loves to bash Republicans like any card-carrying liberal Democrat does. Donald Trump has spent more time since June of last year attacking Republicans than he has Hillary Clinton. Unfortunately for Trump, the chickens have come home to roost. When you piss in my face repeatedly, don't be surprised when I'm not all that enthusiastic about coming to help you in your time of need. It's called burning your bridges behind you, which is why that's considered not a real smart thing to do. You never burn your bridges behind you because who knows, you might need them someday. And if you piss them off, like you pissed us off, then you just might have a problem on your hands, and like Donald Trump and his supporters have right now. The chickens have come home to roost, and Trump doesn't like it. Amazingly enough, because Trump never plans ahead. Trump always lives in the moment. He gives voice to whatever comes across his mind. And that's part of his brand, and he's actually been successful in a sense, in a weird sort of way, not politically, but in terms of his brand, his celebrity persona, which is the real Trump. And he's been successful at it. It's worked for him up to now, but now this is a setting in which, no, it doesn't work. Having no self-discipline, no self-control is not a good thing. It's a bad thing. It's something that's going to be exploited by the other side. I mean, this is the classic case of, oh, you want an outsider, you want a reality TV show outsider for your president, or your candidate, your nominee for president. You can't see anything wrong with that idea. What do you think the media is going to do? when they get the Republican nominee of their dreams. I know you think he's the nominee of your dreams. He's really the nominee of the media's dreams. Because what is the job of the media? To get Democrats elected. And Donald Trump has played into that end game perfectly. As Trump does with other critics, he just can't allow anything to go by. He can't let anything go. He's a counterpuncher. Every single time. No matter how minuscule, no matter how de minimis. I mean, he is the other end of the rainbow from George W. Bush, who never defended himself once, ever, in 8 years in the White House. Or if you want to count the 2 years he got to run to get into the White House in the first place, then 10 years. 1999 to 2009. George W. Bush never defended himself, never stuck up for himself, never defended his policies. He just let it all wash over him, get pounded into the ground. And I always criticized Bush, Bush 43 for that. But this is taking it to the opposite extreme. You can't fight every last battle. Some of them are just not worth fighting. You got to learn when to quote Kenny Rogers, got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away when the evening's done. You got to determine and pick the hills on which it is worth dying. Not every last one of them. Trump can't let anything go when he perceives it to be a personal slight. And he perceives everything to be a personal slight. He can't separate his ideas, his policies from personal. He can't separate the two. That's how he looks upon America. If Donald Trump were to become president of the United States, it would be no different than Barack Obama. He would look upon America and himself as one. And that is the mindset of monarchs and dictators. We don't need any more narcissists in the White House. We need another silent Cal, Calvin Coolidge. Even another George W. Bush who at least had humility. Oh, anybody who runs for president has to have a huge ego. That's hard to argue with, but George W. Bush had humility. He didn't act like it was all about him. He cared about his country. He put America first. Ironically enough, Donald Trump doesn't put anything before himself. And that gets back to the personality cult idea. You people have equated America and Trump. And that very concept is un-American. When the news broke of Donald Trump's grab them by the pussy comments, Pussygate in other words, Paul Ryan weighed in saying, quote, "I am sickened by what I heard today. Women are to be championed and revered, not objectified." But then Ryan didn't withdraw his endorsement, so it's just words. He also disinvited Trump from what was to be a joint campaign appearance together in Wisconsin, but he still didn't withdraw his endorsement, so it's just an empty gesture. And yet, Trump, instead of dealing with his nonsense, unleashed a small tweet storm aimed directly at the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Understand, Ryan did not and has not withdrawn his endorsement of Trump. And yet, here's the tweet storm. Paul Ryan should spend more time on balancing the budget, jobs, and illegal immigration, and not waste his time on fighting Republican nominee. Who's fighting whom? Trump? Ryan's not fighting you. You're fighting him. Democrats have a corrupt political machine pushing crooked Hillary Clinton. We have Paul Ryan always fighting the Republican nominee. Maybe if you didn't give him reason to criticize you. Trump is never wrong. This is what he's saying. Despite winning the second debate in a landslide, every poll, that bullshit, it's hard to do well when Paul Ryan and others give zero support. Oh, really? So now, that's blatantly contradictory. On the one hand, he's insisting he won the second debate. On the other hand, he's saying, but they won't give me any support. Well, if you won the second debate without Paul Ryan and others giving you support, then you don't need them, right? What he's really saying here is, I got my ass handed to me in the second debate and it's all their fault. That's what he's really saying here. He just can't admit that he got his ass handed to him in all three debates. He got skunked 3-zip. Wow, interview released by WikiLeaks shows quid pro quo and crooked Hillary Clinton email probe. Such a dishonest person, and Paul Ryan does zilch. What's Paul Ryan supposed to do about it? Paul Ryan's not the Attorney General. Well, we could hold hearings. Yeah, well, hold hearings then. I mean, they are holding hearings. I don't know if they started yet, but so what? I mean, in 20 years of Republicans holding hearings on Democrat scandals, has anything ever come from a single one of them? Even Trey Gowdy's Select Committee on Benghazi, has anything ever come from that? What do you want Paul Ryan to do? Paul Ryan, a man who doesn't know how to win. Oh, you mean how he's going to win re-election to his House seat, and if the Republicans can hang on to the House, is going to retain the big gavel? But where are you, Trump? Doesn't know how to win, huh? He cited the example of 4 years ago. A failed run 4 years ago. Well, he wasn't on the top of the ticket. That was Mitt Romney. And even saying that about Mitt Romney, a man who doesn't know how to win. Mitt Romney got elected governor of Massachusetts in 2002. He's won. Paul Ryan has won repeatedly. He rose to the speakership of the House of Representatives. What's Donald Trump ever done in politics? Lose a presidential election that was all but unlosable, but he's managing to do it. Must start focusing on the budget, military vets, all like you are? Why does, in other words, I guess what Trump is saying in this tweet storm is Paul Ryan needs to be running in his place for president. I mean, that's the only thing I can conclude. He's blaming Paul Ryan for the fact that he is losing what should have been an unlosable presidential election. He's demanding that Paul Ryan do all the things that Trump himself refuses to do. Sooner or later, the time comes to take responsibility. Trump does nothing but blather about winning like a spray-tanned version of Charlie Sheen. But when he starts losing, he blames everybody but himself. And his supporters do the same damn thing. Well, 2 weeks left until Election Day. It's time to put the big boy pants on and accept that any problems Trump has are of his own making. And that brings us to National Review editor Rich Lowry, who pretty much states what should be the obvious, which is that Trump's Achilles heel is Trump. Donald Trump is a genuinely self-destructive candidate, and he just can't help it. And even if he could, he'd be doing it anyway because his job is to get Hillary Clinton elected. Mission accomplished. Kapla! Hillary Clinton may be the first candidate in American history to win a contest of personalities without having one. Ooh, that's smart because it's true. She has been content and able to make the election all about Donald Trump's character, and Trump has obliged because really, what else would he consider as fascinating and important as himself? It's the front porch campaign, folks, I'm telling you. Look it up, Google it, look it up on Wikipedia. That's what Benjamin Harrison in 1888 called his front porch campaign. He didn't go out and campaign. He just let people come to him at his home in Indianapolis. And it worked! In a more normal year, Obamacare would be a byword for the failures of liberal technocratic rule. Insurers have been exiting the cartels, and many of those that are staying are hiking premiums by 20% or more per year. Year after year after year. Even a Democrat governor, Mark Dayton of Minnesota, has said that Obamacare is no longer affordable to increasing numbers of people. Duh! In a more conventional election, Barack Obama's foreign policy would be under relentless and withering assault. The Russian reset is in flames. Syria is Obama's Rwanda. Ooh, that one's smart too. Iran, with its nuclear weapons arsenal intact and growing, is making a bid for, regional hegemony? Hell, global hegemony. ISIS established its caliphate in the space created by Obama's retreat. In any other campaign, the economy would be front and center, and the economic depression of the past almost 10 years, a constant flashpoint. Instead, none of these issues have had the resonance of Donald Trump's early hours Twitter war with the former Miss Universe, or even his aside in the third debate that Hillary Clinton is a, quote, nasty woman, which was code word for ball-busting cunt. And these have been third-tier controversies compared with the ones that have truly rocked the campaign, such as Trump's post-convention fight with the Khan family. Khan! And the airing of the Access Hollywood tape, a.k.a. Pussygate. And why do you think that is, folks? I talked about this yesterday in the context of Trump scandals versus Hillary scandals. Sex sells. What do you think is going to capture the public's imagination more? A sex scandal? A tape where Donald Trump is bragging about grabbing women by the pussy? And I just can't help kissing them. And bursting in on or not bursting in, but pinning a reporter against the wall, a female reporter, when his at the time pregnant wife was in the next room, sticking his tongue down her throat and telling her, we're going to have an affair. Now, compare that with the long, labyrinthine, complicated, complex 6 degrees of separation, just impossible to follow web of La Clinton Nostra scandals, quid pro quo, corruption, pay for play. I mean, what do you think is going to capture the public's imagination more? Everybody gets sex. Everybody understands sex. Just about everybody does sex. Has sex. plenty enough of it on television, in the movies. But long, boring, tedious, difficult to understand, difficult to follow audit trails of who did what favor for whom, how long ago, and then 6 months later, and then this and that and the other, and it's no contest. I mean, there is a reason why the only Bill Clinton scandal that actually hurt him, and even then it didn't really hurt his approval ratings, but in terms of getting him impeached, was what? Was it Whitewater? Was it Troublegate? Was it Waco? Was it the Chinese funny money scandal after the 1996 election, the illegal campaign contributions from the Chi-Coms? No, it was none of those things. What was it? Pecker tracks on a blue dress. It was sex. People understand sex. It's simple to follow. Hillary Clinton scandals, I guarantee you, Hillary Clinton is never going to have a sex scandal. I know it's shocking, but it's never going to happen. Hillary Clinton scandals are all monstrously complex, impossible to follow, will cause voters' eyes to just completely glaze over, and it takes forever to resolve them, assuming in the unlikely circumstance that they ever are resolved. It's years and years later. I mean, for God's sake, look how long Benghazi has dragged on. That was 4 years ago. And it's not stopping her from getting elected president, is it? Why? Donald Trump! Oh, man, all the missed opportunities. Again, can you picture what Ted Cruz would have done to Hillary Clinton in these debates? Oh, my God, it would have actually been a presidential campaign instead of a reality TV program, which is what his campaign has always been. It's just reality TV. Voters want to be entertained. They don't want to be led. They don't want to be served. They want to be entertained, and that's what they voted for. That's what they voted for. Trump never talks about issues. And even the issues that he ever has talked about were just wedge issues in order to seize the Republican nomination. And he never meant a word of them. I mean, nothing besides his core of immigration and trade has the force to escape the extreme gravitational pull of his persona, and he's been on both sides of those two issues. He's sold out on illegal immigration. Sold out. Embraced amnesty 2 months ago. Why do you think Ann Coulter has disappeared? The same woman who said, I would perform abortions in the Oval Office itself if it meant Trump would get rid of the illegals. Or words to that effect. And then Trump sold out on illegal immigration. You haven't heard a single screech out of Ann Coulter, have you? I mean, Donald Trump's persona is outsized, revolting, and in a presidential campaign ripe for deconstruction. Reality television is not presidential politics. The presidency is not an entry-level job. It is the toughest job in the country. We don't want outsiders. We don't want citizen politicians, which is the biggest myth the Tea Party ever concocted. We want professionals. We want people who, or we should want people who know what they're doing, who have a proven track record. For God's sake, how many governors, current or former, ran in this very GOP primary campaign? How many? 5? I think it was 5. Yeah, you had Rick Perry, you had Chris Christie, you had John Kasich, you had Scott Walker, and Bobby Jindal. 5? Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. 5 governors. 5 governors. And they were the first 5 candidates bounced from the race. God, this is frustrating. I mean, when Trump is defeated in 2 weeks, he will lose more than anything else on the basis of his character flaws. And this was, is there a word that says it more emphatically than easy? Effortless? You have to be blind, deaf, and dumb not to be able to see this. Trump's character flaws, Trump's lack of discipline, Trump's thin skin, Trump's ego, Trump's boastfulness, Trump's vindictiveness, Trump's immaturity, Trump's self-centeredness, Trump's narcissism, his refusal to admit error even when it's in his interest, his inability to project seriousness, his inability to hit a single grace note. He doesn't even know what grace is. La Quinta Nostra has exploited them all, gleefully. And Trump ever himself has lacked the self-awareness or wherewithal to keep from playing to type every single time because he's not capable of doing so. Think about it. The man is 70 years old. When in that entire misbegotten, worm-eaten, egg-sucking life has he ever had a reason not to be himself? Until now, there's never been one. And you know that expression about an old dog? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Remember that one? He's never had a reason to be anything but Trump. Trump is his brand. That persona is his brand, and it is the real Trump. It is exactly what you get when you have never once, in your 7 decades on this planet, either been told no or have ever had to tell yourself no. I've never had to deal with adversity, never been in a position where you had to keep your mouth shut, swallow your pride, and just take your lumps. Like I did the last 3.5, 4 months at that bakery. When one time as iron as my self-discipline is, one time I almost lost it. I reeled it back in with a physical effort because I had a great deal to lose from pulling what amounts to, well, pulling a Trump. Trump has never had anything to lose from being himself. Being himself has always worked. Being himself has always gotten him what he wants. Until now. Assuming that he actually does want to win in 2 weeks from today. You know, the so-called beer test is the usual personality metric in presidential politics. It's a metaphor. Is this somebody that, do you like them? Would you want to spend shoot the breeze? Have a beer, shoot the breeze, go shoot hoops, go play golf, whatever it is. Just some quality time doing whatever. Hang out. That's another word for it. Which candidate would you prefer to share a cold one with or hang out or shoot the breeze, whatever? Watch the game. Yeah, there's an idea. Which one? Who would you? Which candidate? With which candidate would you like to watch the game? Whatever the game is, baseball, football, I don't care, basketball. Now, Hillary's campaign has worked instead to make the personality benchmark the nuclear code test. Which can, in other words, make it relevant to presidential politics. Make it relevant to the presidency itself. I mean, there are plenty of people that I wouldn't mind hanging out with. Doesn't make him qualified to be president. Hillary's campaign made they made the personality benchmark relevant to the presidency. The nuclear code test. Which candidate would you prefer to have his or her finger on the button? Which candidate has the, and that's reflected in the, which candidate has a presidential or more of a presidential temperament poll questions, in which Hillary Clinton just absolutely blows Donald Trump out of the water. It's meant to portray Trump's outrageousness, his lack of self-control, his impulsiveness, all of which make him dangerous with that kind of destructive power at his fingertips. When he is likely to order a nuclear strike on a country because their leader dissed him. Oh, that's an exaggeration. He'd never do that. Well, maybe not. But can you be entirely sure? I mean, that's the deterrence effect, after all. Oh, we'd like to attack them, but I don't know. We might not win, so we better not. Do you know? Are you Trump supporters? Are you absolutely? Would you guarantee with your lives, whatever, that Donald Trump would not order nuclear release over a personal slight? Or or maybe not even nuclear, but just military. Just go to war over a personal slight. Can you guarantee that? Would you bet your life on it? Let's personalize it more. Enlist in the military or re-enlist. And if Trump, so that you would be put on the front lines if Donald Trump reacted with a military strike over a personal slight. Would you put your life on the line? Would you guarantee that with your life? I don't think you would, if you're being honest. It is meant to portray Trump's outrageousness as affirmatively dangerous and cast her own persona. Oh, sorry. Dozed off there for a minute. Which belongs in the same leaden category. That's a good word right there. As Fat Albert Gore, Michael Dukakis, and John Kerry in the best possible light. In fact, it's not unlike the personality metric that the left tried to impose on Ronald Reagan. Remember? The nuclear cowboy? Reagan's going to blow up the world. He's going to get us all killed. And it was just the opposite. Because Ronald Reagan was serious. Yeah, Ronald Reagan was an actor. Yeah, bedtime for Bonzo. B actor. Hollywood. Entertainer. Okay, great. What did he do? When he got into politics, and then he ran for governor of California, and got elected, and got reelected. 2-term governor of the largest state in the country. You think that was a pretty good preparation to be president of the United States? I mean, when Ronald Reagan got elected in 1980, he had been a politician for almost 20 years. He knew what he was doing. I couldn't Donald Trump run for governor of New York with that outsized personality. I mean, I don't know. Arnold Schwarzenegger is constitutionally ineligible to run for the presidency. Not that that stopped Barack Obama. But what did he? He ran for governor of California. Served 2 terms. Or 1 3/4 terms, but whatever. The arrogance, and in this context, you could say the same thing of Ben Carson or Carly Fiorina. The idea that, well, I've never held elective office before, I've never run for any office before, but I'm going to run for president? You know, no candidate has had, or who has had such a seemingly commanding lead in a presidential race has ever been so little in evidence as Hillary Clinton. And that's the only way that she could win. The front porch campaign. I've said it for several years, that the more visible Mrs. Clinton is, the more unpopular she gets. The idea of Hillary Clinton, first woman president, yeah, a lot of people say, yeah, it's about time we had a woman president. But then when they get a close look at Mrs. Clinton herself, it's like, ugh, no. The only way that Hillary Clinton could win is to run a front porch campaign, low visibility, minimize her public exposure. And how is that possible in the early 21st century, where there's mass communications, 500 cable channels, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Facebook, MySpace, etc., etc., etc.? How is that possible? Now we know. Now we know why Bill Clinton went to Donald Trump a month or so before he actually jumped into the race and stroked his ego and effortlessly manipulated him into doing what La Clinton Nostra needed to get Mrs. Clinton elected president. She could not have been elected any other way. Name any other candidate in the Republican field. Any of them. Any of them would have beaten Hillary Clinton. Maybe by a lot, maybe by a little. But every other candidate in the Republican field would have defeated Hillary Clinton. She had to have Donald Trump. She had to have Trump. There was no other choice, no other option. And that's what she got. 40% of the Republican electorate gave Hillary Clinton what she needed to win. And they'll never admit it. But it's the truth. Hillary Clinton is winning a presidential election when politics is not her strength, because she can rely on surrogates to do much of the campaigning, especially Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Mr. Bill, her husband, while she raises the money to feed the massive Democrat political apparatus. Otherwise, she tries to stay out of her own way with some mixed success, when she's not fainting on camera, and counts on Trump to soak up all the attention, which he always will. And so he does. His closing argument speech over the weekend, there was supposed to be some sort of Trump contract with America or something. I mean, it's like, yeah, right. Wouldn't it be, shouldn't they have called it the Trump proposition to America? Because that would have been a lot more apropos. And that started with a threat to sue his accusers that inevitably drove all the press coverage, because he's Trump. Any other candidate would want to change the subject from the accusations, which are a gaping, sucking wound from a PR standpoint. But not Trump. He's a counterpuncher who can never, ever let a damaging controversy go even 2 weeks before the election. In the primaries, Trump displayed an uncanny ability to understand and target the vulnerabilities of his opponents, and because his supporters were already predisposed toward hating Republicans. But he either never understood or didn't care to minimize his own vulnerabilities because, as a stupendous, strutting, cosmic narcissist, he didn't think he had any, and he still doesn't. Or he would shut up. His mouth is a vulnerability. How do you grab a pussy with fingers that small? I don't know. I mean, this is why Trump chose to make the election about the single hardest thing for him to defend effectively, namely Donald J. Trump. But then he really couldn't have done anything else because Trump. And that's why we opposed him. That's why we don't support him. That's why he never should have been the GOP nominee in the first place. And if you want to talk about pointing fingers and casting blame, this is all on you, Trump supporters. Own it. Because we're going to make sure you do.